Hello everyone. Just give me a second to double check this is working and everything is live. Okay. All right. Yes, everything is working. I checked. Hi everyone, welcome. Today we're going to talk about data-driven decision making for managers. Throughout the stream, feel free to type your questions in chat and I'll try to answer them as we go if I have the time. If not, I'll address them at the end. So let's begin. I'll make myself tiny, put myself in the corner of the screen. I have to warn you, I have a cold. It's not an issue, but this is why I have this DJ voice, so please bear with me on that. Data-driven decision making for managers. A couple of explanatory points before we get into the meat of the topic. Today we will address these things. We will discuss about how to gather data, how to validate data, how to interpret data, and how to make decisions based on data, and also how to consider the human factor when it comes to data. And I'll explain exactly what this means as we go along. What we will not talk about today is automation and AI. Clearly, you should automate your data decision, your data collection, your data analysis whenever possible. However, before you automate a process, any kind of process, including a data gathering and analysis process, you should first understand and make sure that that process is correct, because the worst thing you can do is automate a bad process. Then you have mistakes at an industrial scale. And we are also not going to focus on AI because obviously AI is an extremely powerful tool and you can use AI in your data analysis and even decision making. But today's focus is on us understanding. How do we understand what we're doing before we delegate these things towards automation or towards AI or whatever? So we're going to focus on our understanding. Why did I call it for managers? Why did I say data-driven decision making for managers and not for anyone else? Well, it's not only for managers, obviously, but there's a particular kind of decision making that I want to focus on, which is very applicable to managers. And managers live in this situation where they have to make many decisions quickly, and those decisions are not necessarily related to one another. So managers do not have this luxury of spending a month, 3 months, 6 months just analyzing one thing deeply. Managers always have to fix problems, like this thing comes up, this thing comes up, this thing comes up, and you have to, as the saying goes, get smart quickly. You know, understand what's happening, ask questions, gather data, and decide how much you can trust that data, and relatively quickly make some kind of a decision. And also another thing that's specific to managers, not only managers, is the data we typically work with in business, it's not isolated, it's not pure, it's mixed with the organizational culture and human biases and polities and things like that. And you'll understand what I'm talking about as we get into our example. It's not like a pure research kind of pure technical area where we just do some load testing for a piece of software and whatever numbers we get, those are 100% objective. There's nothing to debate about them. It is what it is. In management decisions, data is sometimes not that easy to isolate from other factors. All right. Today we're going to work with an example and discuss the principles of data-driven decision making around this example. And this example is how we analyze employee attrition and how we understand what's happening, why our people are leaving the company, and if and what we can do about it to prevent it. It's just an example, but the principles and the approach and the ideas that we're going to discuss are universally applicable. They apply to any other situation. It's the same exact approach if you want to analyze a sales funnel, if you want to analyze customer feedback, quality across your product lines, performance across your departments. It is the same approach, but I wanted to take an example because it's always easier to work with an example, of course. And let's start. So let's say you're a manager, you're the CEO of a company, doesn't matter, it's just an example. And it's a relatively small company, you have 100 employees, and for the past 12 months, 20 employees have left. So you have a 20% attrition. And that seems a little bit high, and you want to understand what's happening and you want to figure out and potentially make decisions. So you call a meeting with your management team and you say, hey guys, bring the data, let's look and see what's happening with the attrition. And you go to that meeting and this is the data that you get, right? This is the data that is brought to that meeting. We have a very simple, very basic data. We have two columns. One is called the date of attrition, which is a bunch of dates. And we have another column which is called the employee name. So obviously this employee left on that date and so on and so on. As you look at this data, what are your immediate thoughts? Do you see anything that's worrying? Do you see anything that's not right? Do you see anything that you would like to correct in this data? You know, what is your instinct? You can type it in chat if you want, or just keep it for yourself because I'll mention it later and you can check if we had the same thoughts. But let's say this is the data you start with. This is what's brought to you. What can we do with this data? Well, not so much, but we can do some things with it. And the first thing we can do is obviously just put it on a timeline and then see if there's anything happening across time. So if we put it on a timeline, we can see that we do have some apparent patterns here. We can see that the month of January, for example, and May and September, they had the most people who left. Now 4 each month. We can see that a couple of other months had 2 people, and most months had 1 person or no person. So there's some timeline variation, which we can obviously see. But what does this mean exactly? I mean, can we be sure about the causes of this? What can we do with this, right? This is obvious observation, but what can we do with this as a management action? So what do we do next? When we're in this situation, we have some data, it's not a lot of data, what do you do next, right? Well, this is a time when we start to speculate, basically. We come up with ideas. So you just look at this thing and you just imagine from what you know, what might be the reasons for this thing. And for example, somebody might say that, hey, you know what? We have salary reviews in January. So at the beginning of January, we let people know if they get salary increases. The budget for this year was horrible. We didn't have almost any increases. So maybe, somebody says, they're speculating, and it's fine at this stage, maybe we have the high number of people who left in January was because of that. They were expecting salary increases and they didn't get them. That doesn't tell us anything about the people in May or the people in September, but still, it's something. It's an idea. It's an idea, but can we be sure? Is it correct? Is it not correct? Well, we don't know yet. And here is where we have to understand a couple of very simple things about working with data. And the first thing is, everybody's heard about this, correlation versus causation. And this is basically just because 2 things happen around the same time, it doesn't mean that one caused the other. And there's this famous saying of, when ice cream sales go up in Spain, street crime levels also increase. This is a true statement. This is actually a true statement. When ice cream sales go up in Spain, street crime levels also increase. But of course, this is not causation, this is correlation. Street crime doesn't increase because people buy ice cream. What's happening actually is that in summertime, when the days are longer and the weather is warmer, people buy more ice cream and other people also engage in more crime. They happen at the same time, but one doesn't cause the other. So the same thing could happen with our January people. Maybe they left because they didn't get salary increases, or maybe it's just a coincidence. How do we know? How do we know for sure? That's a question for now. But another thing, and here is I want to ask you to remember, I asked you when we looked first at this table, did anything stand out to you? And one thing that's ambiguous about this otherwise very simple table is this, the name of this column, date of attrition. What does this mean? Date of attrition. Does this mean, is this the date when they actually left, their last day of employment? Is this the date when they submitted their resignation? Or any other date? But even between the date when they submitted their resignation and the date when it's actually their last day of work, it's typically 2, 3, 4 weeks between those two dates. So there's a difference. And this is confusing. This is not precise. And when we work with data, we need to be very precise. So that's one of the things you need to keep in mind. And this actually has a very big impact. Because if, for example, this means that the date of attrition is their last day of employment, and they left in January, that means they submitted the resignation in December before they knew about the salary reviews. So that means that our idea that maybe it's because of salary reviews is false. But if, on the other hand, the date of attrition means the date when they submitted the resignation, it could still be because of the salary reviews. So precision is very important when we work with data, understanding exactly what the data means. Don't make any assumptions, just make sure. And also, another thing we have to keep in mind is the law of small numbers. When we work with statistics, when we try to understand patterns, trends, and we're working with small numbers, that doesn't usually work. So for example, if you have 2 people that left from a team of 10 people, statistics has no place in this. And trends and general patterns have absolutely no meaning. In this case, you just have to analyze the 2 cases individually. You have a very large number of people. If, for example, you have 1,000 people that left from a 10,000 people company, then statistics makes a lot of sense and you can look at general trends. In our case, we have 20 people who left from 100, borderline statistically meaningful, but still, it could be in our case that one individual event has a big impact, because it might just be that in the month of January, we had 3 friends that decided together to go and do something else, and that completely changed the statistic for that month. So these are just things you have to keep in mind. And data analysis and making decisions with data as a manager is always about this thing. The thing that you want to be certain, you want to trust the data, but you also know that you can never fully trust the data because the data is never perfect. And you should never assume things, and you should always have it in your mind clearly what you know and what you don't know. And when people say that managers and people in general have to work in conditions of ambiguity and make decisions in conditions of uncertainty, that's what they mean. You never have the full picture, but you are aware about what you don't know. So as a manager in this situation, I know that maybe this is a trend or maybe this is just one specific event. I have that in the back of my mind. Okay, that aside, we're still stuck. We don't know anything about our attrition. What do we do next? And the answer is simple. We need more data. Yeah, we need to get more data. We have to enrich and improve the data. So let's get more data. And let's assume that we've clarified what this column means. So we've improved the data and now we have a precise definition of what this column means, not an ambiguous one. And let's assume that we also have, from the exit interviews, a reason of why those people left at that point in time. So now we have more data. This is already looking better. However, we also have a new problem. This column reason is what I call soft data. The dates and the employee names are hard data. Sure, that can be an error in copy pasting or something, but that aside, this is not debatable. A date is a date, a name is a name. You know, they're precise, they're fixed. There's nothing to discuss about them. Yes, we have to make sure we understand exactly what it means and make sure it's all there, but it's hard data. Reason is soft data. And soft data is data that is very susceptible to collection errors and human factors. And examples of soft data, just to give you a couple of other examples, every time you do a satisfaction survey, every time you do an engagement survey, every time you get client feedback, exit interviews, which is our example, and all kinds of, in general, whatever people say, is soft data, because whatever people say is usually different from what they do. Classical example is you're a supermarket and you're asking your clients, your shoppers, what do you want us to have more of in our supermarket? And a lot of people are going to say desirable things. They're going to say things like, I want more healthy food, I want more fresh food, I want more local products, things that sound good. They're not actually lying to you, they're in a way believing that. It just sounds good, It sounds good to them as well. But when it actually comes to buying, they're not going to necessarily buy those things. And you can find yourself in a situation where, well, I listened to my customers and I gave them what they wanted, what they said they wanted, but they're not buying that. And that's why it's usually much more reliable not to observe what people say, but to observe what people do. Behavior is much more reliable than surveys. And with exit interviews, it's even more like that, because psychologically speaking, that this is a difficult conversation. And when you go and have an exit interview with people, hey, why did you leave our company? Most people are going to be polite. They don't want to get into an argument. They don't want to burn their bridges. So they might just say some, nice sounding, polite lie. And you have to be aware of that. So what you need to do with soft data, you have to know in detail exactly how it was collected for you to trust it even a little bit. So if I'm the manager analyzing this attrition report and my HR manager comes to me and tells me, okay, we have these exit interviews. Here are the reasons. I will ask a lot of detailed questions. I will ask, how did exactly do we gather this data? Because, for example, if we send a junior HR person to have a 5-minute conversation with the employee on the day before they leave, then this data is worthless. It's worse than worthless. It's just going to lead us into the wrong direction. But if we say, for example, that we have a senior HR person who sits down with them for half an hour and they have a very detailed conversation, and we also correlate that with their manager, and we also send them a form they can fill also for the exit interview, and we put it all together and we balance it. Now, this may be a little bit more useful. And the thing with soft data is bad soft data is worse than no data. It just leads you down the wrong path. How can I check? So maybe they tell me we gather the right way and we do it the right way, but still I want to test it. How can I test it? And here is where we get into the concept of the deep dive test. When you have data you're not sure about, you can do a deep dive test. What does that mean? You pick a couple of examples, not all of them, it's too difficult. Here is just 20, but maybe you have thousands. But you pick a few examples, a subset of those examples, and you go and check again. Maybe with this person we still have good relationships, and you can actually go and ask them again, invite them for a coffee and ask them, hey, when you left us last year, is this actually why you wanted to leave us? Or maybe here we can talk to their manager, we can double check. So we pick 3, 4, 5 examples and we double check again. And if they match what we have here, then maybe we can trust this data a little bit. If they don't, then we know this data is not trustworthy. So that's how you test data. I talked a lot about soft data because this is very, very important. You should not easily trust this. Trust is a good thing in general, but when it comes to soft data, trust but verify. This is the killer for a lot of management decisions. Managers look at data like this and just take it for granted, and they make big decisions, and those big decisions are based on bad data and nothing works. But that aside, let's assume we kind of trusted and now we have this, okay? What can we do with this? It's more than what we had before. How is bad data worse than no data? Is a question in chat, and that's a very good question. So, for example, let me give you an example. If I don't know why people left, let's say I don't have this column, reason, here, before this column, then I know I don't know. It's not good, but at least I don't know, man. I don't know what to do. I don't know what decision to make. We need to find out more. I am in that situation. But if I have bad data, then I will make a decision based on bad data, And that decision may do even more harm because it's like trying to fix a problem or doesn't exist, or fix the wrong problem, or make the problem even worse. It's like if I'm trying to travel on a road and I don't know, if I don't know what road to take, at least I stop and think. But if the GPS is showing me the wrong path, I might end up in a ditch. So sometimes, not sometimes, all the time, it's better to not know than know the wrong thing. In that way, this kind of data can be very dangerous. I hope that makes sense. But we're here. What do we do with this, right? So now what we can do with this, we can see a couple of things very easily, right? We can see that company A is hiring a lot of people from us. So a lot of the reasons are they got a better offer from company A, they got a better offer from company A, they got a better offer from company A. And also we see that a lot of them want to do something else, want to do something else, want to do something else, want to do something else. So these are the two biggest reasons. There's other reasons too, but these are the two biggest reasons. So now when we discuss and we try to understand this data, we see that these are the two biggest reasons. So we need to investigate more and understand exactly who is leaving for company A and what exactly are the reasons why they're leaving for company A. And we also may think, we may want to add another column which categorizes the types of attrition. And we may have a couple of possible values here, and one value is unwanted attrition, which is yes, we didn't want to lose these people, but they left. But also we have another category which is called the life choice. People moving to a different city or a different country. Apologies. Or wanted attrition. Wanted attrition meaning we have a performance situation. So it's not like we wanted to get rid of this person, so to say. And the temptation would be to add this column because what we would want to do is that we only care about unwanted attrition. And we just filter out the other things. And let me ask you, why is a column like this dangerous? Why is a column like this dangerous? It's very reasonable in some sense of the word. It makes sense in some ways, but it's also very dangerous. And let's see why a column like this is very dangerous from a management point of view. So now we're not just thinking as data analysts, we're putting our hats as managers and we're thinking about the behavior of the organization. And like Peter Drucker said, you get what you measure. So the way we measure things is going to influence people's behavior. Human nature and perverse incentives. What if we add this column, what will managers, our department managers, be incentivized to report? Well, nobody wants to report they have high attrition because that reflects as a failure on their department. Nobody wants that. They will want to report as low of an attrition as possible. So if you give them this option, they will try as much as possible without wanting to. It's not like they're sabotaging you directly, but it's just human nature. Whenever there's a case, like maybe it's a bit of a life choice, maybe it's a bit of something else, they just put it a life choice because they want to report lower attrition. To give you a different kind of an example, which I'm sure many of you have seen in many places, you have a big project with many teams and there's a lot of problems. It's it's over budget, it's over time, there's a lot of problems and a lot of pressure from the top to deliver, to do things. And you have individual project managers and department managers working on those components. And they all have problems. They all are late, they don't have enough people, they don't have enough resources, they don't know how to get it done. But none of them wants to report that they have problems. Because if they say, I'm going to have problems, then they'll get unwanted attention. So they all kind of make it seem more positive than it is. They all kind of fudge the numbers. And they say, I think we can do it. And they have a long list of contingencies and risks and caveats. And they say, I think we can do it if this, and this happens. And they know that will never happen. But it's just a way for them to report positive news and avoid scrutiny. And everybody does that. And everybody knows it's kind of fake. And the upper level, the next level of management also kind of knows it's kind of fake, but they also want to be able to report positive news upwards and so on and so on. And you go 2, 3, 4 layers like this, and you look at the picture from the top and everything seems great, when in fact nothing is good. And this is not science fiction. This happens a lot. This is how a lot of companies fail. This is how bureaucracy works. This is how Nokia failed. I've seen this with my own eyes in many companies. I'm not going to name names, obviously. And it starts from things like this. You're going to say, okay, but that's a bad culture, Andre. I agree it's a bad culture, but what creates a bad culture? Many things create a bad culture, but one things that create bad culture is when you measure data in a way that pushes people towards fudging the truth. So this is why a column like this is dangerous. Okay, putting that to the side. We create a pie chart with those reasons. And now it's very clear to us that we have two huge problems. People want to do something else, and people got a better offer for company A. So let's focus on these two. And we need more details. This is not enough. When we say people got a better offer from company A, what exactly was better? Was it about the job? Was it more money? And even if you say more money, that's not enough. More money for what kind of roles? In our company, we have multiple roles with different pay scales. Is that company paying better than us for everything? Or maybe just for some of them? Are they hiring all kinds of people? Or maybe they're focusing on hiring a different kind of role from us? And we have to get very detailed and very precise. And maybe at the end of this, we understand that they're hiring medium-level JavaScript developers, and they're offering them 40 to 50% more salaries than what we offer them. And now we have something that is very specific. We know exactly where we have a problem. Now, when you look at I want to do something else, this is another one of those very soft data, because this is exactly the kind of answer somebody wants to give when they don't want to have a difficult conversation. It's like maybe they hate their team leader and they're leaving because they hated their team leader, but they don't want to say, I hate my team leader. They're going to say, it's all okay, it's fine, you're a good company, but I just want to do something else. So one idea we get from here is that we need to be very careful when people give us this answer in exit interviews. We need to push more. Politely, but try to get more from them. And even if it is a real answer, even if it is the honest answer, what exactly did they want to do something else? Because it might also be a problem with us, right? Because if, for example, they want to do something else in the sense that they want to change the industry, yeah, there's nothing we can do about it. Wish them a good life, wish them good luck, that's it. But if they want to do something else in the sense that they want to work in a different project, and we have a different project, but we didn't allow them to move to the different team, we don't have that kind of flexibility, we don't have that kind of career growth, then maybe this is a problem we could solve internally. And maybe the action for us would be, in this case, to train the managers to allow more career flexibility for people. And when people want to do different things, they want to, try different things, maybe our managers should be more willing to help them, so people don't feel they need to leave the company in order to do something else, at least some of the time. And also we need to align the pay of that particular category of people where we have vulnerability. And let's say that we also investigate, it's not here in the example, but let's say, just for example, that we also added another column with the department. What department are these people from? And we see that the attrition in development is higher than other departments. Much higher. Okay, what does this mean? And again, we do not want to jump to correlation versus causation. We don't want to say like, oh, the development manager is bad. We don't know that. Maybe it's just the market is more competitive in development, or maybe in development they have more difficult projects with more difficult clients, and because of that people are more stressed and they leave more. So we don't know we start from the beginning. We don't want to make assumptions, or we can make assumptions, but then we have to test them. We have to validate them. We don't want to jump to conclusions. And this is what you always do. This might be because of that, but we don't know yet. Let's find out more. This is the general approach. And now we can automate, right? Now we understand what the data is. We understand exactly where it's coming from. It's clarified, it's precise. We know how the exit interview is done. It's a quality exit interview. We do it well. Now we can automate this. And what do I mean by automate? We can put it in a, in a software, and we can get generated reports or something, because we understand exactly what the data is, and we can just look at it and know what it is and discuss it every week or every month without having to ask, where is this coming from? What does this mean? Can we trust it? Can we not trust it? And another thing that people always also forget to do a lot of the time is to examine the negative. So you have people that left the company, but they also have people who stayed in the company. And we ask the question, why do people leave? But we also need to ask the question, why do people stay? And that's equally important, if not more important. And for example, the same thing with client churn. If some clients leave, stop using your products, you want to know why they stopped using your products. It's very important. But you also want to know why the people who still continue to use your products or your services are still using them. They're sides of the same coin, and they're both very important. And don't just focus on this. Sometimes you can focus on the negative case, on the bad things, which are usually a minority. So we have some people who left, we have some clients who left, and you focus on those, and you over focus on those, and you forget to also consider why the good things are happening, to make sure you continue to do those good things, to make sure the good things continue to happen. To summarize it, the rules of data-driven decision making. Always be skeptical with data, right? Trust but verify. So whenever you see data, something comes to you, a table, anything, don't just assume it's perfect. Don't assume somebody already checked it, unless you know. Don't assume it's validated. Just always ask, where is this data coming from? How do we collect it? Who validates it? How frequently is it updated? And just do not be afraid to ask questions, and take your time and test and deep dive to make sure you understand what the data is coming from. Data, when usually data reaches managers, it looks very pretty. It's in a table, it's pretty, it's summarized nicely, it's a pretty chart. It's easy to mistake that cleanliness with correctness, but it's not, because behind it you have layers of collection, and you have layers of people making assumptions and people reporting things. You don't know where it came from. You need to know where it came from. Rule number 2, you can speculate. It's fine. Like we speculated there, and we said, oh, maybe these people left in January because of the salary reviews. It's fine to speculate. That's part of using your experience, using your intuition. But immediately after you come up with an idea, you have to test it. So when you speculate, you don't just go with it. Maybe it's because of that. Okay, I have an idea. How can I test it? It's like a scientific experiment, right? Newton said, I think there is gravity. How can I test that the gravity behaves in this way? And you come up with an experiment to test that what you think is true is true. You're also rarely going to be 100% certain in management. Again, in engineering, engineering data is more complicated from a technical point of view, but once you get it, you can trust it. Like there's no, if the software runs in 3.3 seconds, that's it, there's no debate. Management data, it's in a way simpler to understand. It's not as mathematically complicated, but it's more ambiguous. You can never trust it that much. If you're 80% certain in a management decision, that's great. You can never be 100% certain. You don't want to get stuck in analysis paralysis. And when you're unsure, you can experiment. So if you cannot gather enough data or understand what's happening with it to be sure about something, then you can make a decision and pilot it. For example, if we assume that we have a problem with our managers, and our managers are not allowing people enough career progression and flexibility, and because of that people are leaving. But let's say we have a huge company and we're not sure if that's a problem. Maybe, but we're not sure. You don't want to start a huge training program from all the managers, like hundreds of managers in a huge company, spend a whole year training them to do this when you're not sure that's the problem. But you could start this training program in one department and do that for a year, and then at the end of the year, see if attrition decreased in that department compared to the other departments. And if it decreased, and particularly if less people left because of this reason, then Yes, that's actually a problem. Now we can take this pilot and generalize it and apply it for the whole company. You can do things like that when you're not sure. In organization, data is more than data. What you choose to measure influences behavior. This is the Peter Drucker's thing. You get what you measure. So when you measure some KPIs, you're going to influence your people's behavior. You have to be very aware of that. And it's a mindset and a habit. This is something you do every time. This is what you do as a manager when it comes to data-driven decision making. These kinds of things are going to happen to you a lot of times. You're going to be presented with some data. You have to question it. You have to decide every time, how important is this topic? How far do I want to go? Do I need to make a decision right now? Can I wait a little bit more? What other data would I want? What don't I trust? You just probe, you push, and this is how you approach all these kinds of situations. Because you don't have the luxury of knowing for sure. You can't spend 3 months just analyzing one set of data. You also have to move fast. Thank you. If you have any questions. This was data-driven decision making for managers. It's not only for managers, but I've called it for managers because it's a very management-like situation. But every person who works in a kind of role where they face a lot of different situations and they need to make decisions relatively quickly, are going to have to deal with things like this. If there's any questions, you can type them in the chat. I'm going to wait a couple of minutes to see if there are. If they're not, I just want to show you the. So I'm starting to do this kind of webinars this year. If you go to my website, introspecialist.com, and you go to this place, free webinars, you're going to see this is the one that's happening right now. There's a couple of others that are already scheduled. The next one is going to be how to understand and fix your team's communication. And then we're going to have how to get innovation, how to organize your team and your company to get innovation from them. And I will keep adding webinars here as I go. So this is the place where you can stay in touch with these kind of events. I see there are no questions for the moment. So I just want to thank everyone. Thank you for joining me. Hope to see you next time as well. Feel free to tell other people about this. The more people there are, the better. Oh, we have a question. Let's see. What would be what would be a reason given in the exit interview in the spirit of the CIA symbol sabotage field manual? So the CIA Simple Sabotage Field Manual, for the people who don't know, it's a fascinating little booklet. It's a book that the CIA wrote in 1943 or 1944 to give to people in occupied Europe, occupied by Nazi Germany, to teach them how to sabotage the operations of the Nazi factories. So let me give you real examples that I've seen in real companies I've consulted for, where people behave like that. This happens mostly in very big companies because it's harder to have a good culture in a big company than a small company. When you are a small team, culture is mostly just having the right people and just talking to each other, and it kind of happens by itself. In huge companies, it's much more difficult. But I've seen managers, so you go to the status update meeting where project managers have to report on the progress of their component. And I've seen them, they know they're going to be late, they know they're not going to be able to deliver. But instead of preparing to go to that meeting and discuss about that problem, all they do is figure out how to say in a politically correct way that it's somebody else's fault. So they want to say like, oh, I didn't get the requirements in time from the other department, or the other department didn't deliver the API, or whatever, things like that. But they cannot say it like this because it sounds too aggressive, right? So they have to formulate it in a way that it seems like they're not the bad guy, but they're just passing blame on other departments, on other teams. And those people do the same thing, and other people do the same thing. And you have a situation where everybody knows what the real problem is, and everybody knows they're in deep shit, but nobody's talking about it. And why do they do that? Are they bad people? Are they, do they want to sabotage the company? No, not necessarily. But when you talk to those people in private, they're good people. You know, they have families, they have a life. You know, they help old ladies cross the street. They pet a cat. They're not evil people. But the culture is so bad in that company that that's the only way to survive. And if you're trying to be the honest one, if you're trying to be the one that does the right thing and says, you know what, I think we have a problem, I think we're not going to deliver, then you're going to catch all the negative attention and you're going to get beat from every side. So the only rational thing to do in a culture like that is to behave in that very unproductive way. And that's how big companies fail. Not all of them, but that's how a lot of big companies fail. And this is a difficult problem to solve. It's not easy to solve unless you have a lot of commitment from the top level. It's difficult to solve bottom up. This is something you need to solve top down. And yeah, I've seen this kind of stuff happening. Thank you, everyone. Again, thank you for the questions. Thank you, Andre, for the Doamne ajută. And I wish everyone a great day, and I'll see you next time, hopefully. All the best, guys. Bye.